The hall was buzzing with chatter and laughter, a mixture of excitement and expectation. Guests, dressed in elegant attire, moved around, sipping on drinks, their eyes occasionally drifting toward the stage at the front of the room. A grand piano stood there, polished to perfection, gleaming under the warm lights. The girl waited just off stage, her small hands clasped tightly together. She could hear the laughter and the low murmurs from the crowd. People were commenting on her size, her quiet presence, and even her age. Some whispered that it was going to be amusing, a fun way to watch a child try something far beyond her abilities. She could feel her heart beating fast, her fingers tingling nervously, but she also felt a deep, steady determination. She had practiced for years, every day, sometimes until her fingers ached. Each note she played at home had been perfect in her mind, but performing in front of a crowd like this was something else entirely. She had always imagined this moment differently, without the laughter, without the whispers of doubt. She closed her eyes briefly and took a deep breath, letting the sound of the chatter fade into the background. She remembered the long hours of practice, the early mornings, the late nights, and the sacrifices she had made. She remembered the encouragement she had received from her teacher, who always believed in her, even when others did not. That thought gave her a small spark of courage. As she stepped onto the stage, the laughter grew louder. People pointed, some with a smirk on their faces, others shaking their heads in amusement. She felt their eyes on her, sizing her up, expecting her to fail. Her small frame seemed so fragile compared to the grand piano and the seriousness of the event. But she held her head high and walked with purpose toward the instrument. Each step she took seemed to echo in her mind, louder than the laughter surrounding her. She could hear the whispers questioning how she could possibly perform anything meaningful. The words stung, but they also made her focus sharper. She knew this was the moment where all her preparation mattered. She reached the piano and carefully lowered herself onto the bench. Her hands hovered over the keys, feeling the cool smoothness of the ivory beneath her fingers. The room seemed to grow still for a brief moment, a pause in the laughter and whispers, as if everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. She could feel the weight of their expectations and doubts pressing down on her. But she also felt a quiet confidence rising from within. She had faced harder moments in her practice, moments where the music seemed impossible, and yet she had overcome them. She reminded herself that this was just another challenge, one she was ready to meet. The audience leaned forward, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden ridicule. A few people whispered to their neighbors, commenting on how amusing it was going to be. Some laughed outright, thinking they were about to witness a mistake or a stumble. She could see the disbelief in their eyes, the way they underestimated her before she had even begun. It was almost overwhelming, but she closed her eyes for a second, letting the music in her mind take over. She remembered the melodies, the patterns, the emotions that each note carried. She reminded herself that this was her world, her moment, and she did not have to perform for anyone except herself. Her fingers settled onto the keys, poised and ready. She felt the subtle vibration of the piano beneath her fingertips, a silent promise that the instrument would respond to her touch. She could feel the tension in the room, the mix of doubt and curiosity, and she let it guide her focus rather than distract her. The laughter had not stopped completely, but it was fading into the background, placed by an almost tangible sense of anticipation. She could sense the shift, the moment right before something remarkable happens. A moment she had waited for her entire life. As she prepared to play, she thought about the people who had doubted her all along, the moments of ridicule she had faced in the past. She remembered the times when she had been laughed at by classmates, by neighbors, by strangers who did not understand her dedication. Those memories were painful, but they also fueled her determination. She wanted to prove that talent and hard work mattered more than appearances, that courage and persistence could silence the harshest critics. She wanted to show that even a small, quiet person could command attention and respect through sheer skill and passion. She took another deep breath, feeling the air fill her lungs and steady her nerves. The lights on the stage seemed to shine brighter, focusing the attention of the room on her and the piano. She felt a sense of calm settle over her, a quiet confidence that came from knowing she was ready. The laughter from the audience had become a distant hum, almost like background noise in the symphony she was about to create. Her fingers tingled with anticipation, ready to press the keys, ready to release the music that had been living inside her for so long. With a final glance at the audience, she let go of her fear and allowed herself to be completely present in the moment. She reminded herself that this was not about proving anything to anyone else, but about sharing the music that had become a part of her very being. She could feel the energy of the room, the mix of skepticism and curiosity, and she welcomed it. It was a challenge, and she was ready to meet it with every ounce of her talent and determination. The hall seemed to hold its breath as she positioned her hands over the keys, poised to play the first note. The tension was palpable, the anticipation almost tangible. She felt the weight of the moment, but she also felt a sense of excitement, a thrill that came from knowing she was about to do something extraordinary. She focused on the music, on the rhythm, on the emotion that each note would carry. She knew that once she began, there would be no turning back. She was ready for that. As she pressed the first key, the sound filled the hall, clear and resonant. The laughter that had dominated the room moments before stopped abruptly, replaced by a stunned silence. The audience could not believe what they were hearing. The young girl, who had seemed so small and fragile, was producing a sound that was rich, confident, and filled with emotion beyond her years. The first note had captured their attention, silencing the mockery and forcing them to focus entirely on her performance. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, each note precise and expressive. The music seemed to flow effortlessly from her, a natural extension of her thoughts and feelings. The audience watched in awe, their initial amusement replaced by admiration and disbelief. She had taken control of the room with a single note, transforming their laughter into silence and their doubt into astonishment. The atmosphere in the hall had shifted completely, and the young girl felt a surge of confidence as she continued to play. Fully immersed in the music as the piece progressed, she could sense the audience leaning forward, captivated by the sound she was creating. The laughter had vanished completely, replaced by a deep respect and an almost reverent attention. Every note she played carried emotion, telling a story that words could not express. She felt the connection between herself and the listeners, the way the music could touch hearts and change minds. She realized that this was the true power of her talent. The ability to move people and command their attention through her skill and dedication. The hall, once filled with doubt and ridicule, was now united in silent appreciation. Each note she played seemed to draw them further into the world she was creating. A world where talent and passion mattered more than appearances and assumptions. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that she was not only performing but also making a statement about perseverance, courage, and the importance of believing in oneself. The first note had done more than silence the laughter. It had set the stage for a performance that would leave a lasting impression on everyone. Present by the time she reached the end of her first phrase, the audience was completely captivated. Their initial skepticism had been replaced by admiration and respect, and they were eager to hear more. The young girl, who had once felt nervous and uncertain, now felt a sense of empowerment and confidence. She had proven to herself that she could face challenges and overcome them, that she could rise above doubt and fear to create something beautiful and meaningful. The laughter that had once seemed so overwhelming was now a distant memory, replaced by the sound of awe and appreciation for her talent and dedication. The first part of her performance had accomplished what she had hoped. It had captured the attention of the audience, silenced the critics, and established her presence on the stage. She felt a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that she had taken the first step toward sharing her music with the world. The journey was just beginning, but she had already made a powerful impression, one that would resonate with the audience long after the final note had been played. In that moment, she knew that her courage, skill, and determination had allowed her to overcome doubt and ridicule, and she was ready to continue her performance with confidence and passion. The first note she played had echoed through the hall, silencing every doubt, every mocking whisper. For a brief moment, the audience was frozen, staring at her in disbelief. It was as if time had stopped, and all that mattered was the sound that flowed from the piano. Her fingers moved carefully at first, testing the waters, feeling the keys respond to her touch. But as the music began to build, she allowed herself to lose control, to let her emotions guide the performance. Every note carried a story, a feeling she had been holding inside, and the hall seemed to lean closer, drawn into the world she was creating. The audience could no longer look away. The initial curiosity that had brought them to watch her had transformed into complete attention. Their eyes followed her every movement, captivated by the delicate balance between precision and passion. Some leaned forward in their seats, unable to comprehend that such beauty and skill could come from someone so young. Their earlier laughter had been replaced by an almost reverent silence, each person absorbed in the unfolding music. The girl felt the change in energy around her, and it fueled her confidence. She was no longer performing to prove herself. She was performing to share the music that had lived inside her for so long. Her hands moved effortlessly across the keys, weaving patterns of sound that filled the room with emotion. The complexity of the piece she had chosen was apparent, yet she handled it with grace and control. Each chord struck with clarity, each melody flowing naturally, expressing emotions that words could never capture. She felt the music in her very soul, and it poured out through her fingers, touching everyone in the room. The audience, once filled with doubt and amusement, now sat in awe. Realizing that they were witnessing something extraordinary, some guests could feel their hearts beating faster. Drawn into the story the music was telling, the girl's performance was no longer just notes on a piano. It had become an expression of hope, determination, and raw talent. People who had doubted her now felt the power of her courage and skill. The hall was completely transformed, the energy shifting from skepticism to admiration. The sound of her music resonated with the listeners, evoking emotions they had not expected to feel. Some held their breath, some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others exchanged glances. Silently acknowledging the incredible talent before them, she played with a depth of emotion that seemed beyond her years. Each note a reflection of the countless hours she had spent practicing, the sacrifices she had made, and the dreams she held close to her heart. The audience could sense the dedication behind every movement, the love and respect for the music that had brought her to this moment. She had faced ridicule and doubt before, but in this room, surrounded by the people who had laughed at her, she was proving that passion and perseverance could triumph over skepticism. The hall was no longer just a stage. It was a space where her talent had the power to change minds and hearts as she continued. The music grew richer and more dynamic. Her hands moved faster now, each note striking with confidence, each phrase flowing seamlessly into the next. The audience could feel the intensity, the energy, and the emotion behind her performance. They were drawn into a journey that they had not anticipated. A journey guided by the young girl who had once been underestimated. The room seemed to vibrate with the power of her playing, and everyone present was caught in the spell she had cast. It was no longer just a performance. It was an experience that touched the soul. The girl could feel the connection with her listeners deepening. She noticed the way their eyes followed her fingers, the way their expressions shifted from surprise to admiration, some even to tears. She did not need their approval, but the understanding and appreciation she saw in their faces brought her a quiet sense of joy. She realized that music had the ability to speak where words could not, to communicate feelings and stories that transcended age, appearance, and expectation. The audience's disbelief had turned into a profound respect, and she reveled in the power of her own gift. With every passing moment, the performance grew more intense. She moved through the complex sections of the piece with fluidity and skill, each note a testament to her dedication and talent. The room was silent except for the music, the sound filling every corner, resonating in the hearts of everyone present. The girl could feel the energy of the audience, their focus and admiration pushing her to give her best. She played not for the applause, not for the recognition, but for the music itself, allowing it to guide her hands and her soul. The hall seemed to transform around her. What had once been a place of expectation and doubt had become a sanctuary of shared emotion. The audience was completely absorbed, their attention fixed on the young girl and the piano. Every note she played carried weight and meaning, telling a story that only she could express. The music moved from soft and delicate to powerful and commanding, each phrase building upon the last. drawing the listeners further into the journey she was creating. Their earlier laughter was now a distant memory, placed by awe and admiration for her incredible skill. As she reached the climax of the piece, her hands flew across the keys with precision and grace. The audience could feel the power and emotion radiating from her performance. Some were on the edge of their seats, unable to tear their eyes away, while others had tears streaming down their faces. Moved by the beauty and intensity of the music, the girl felt a sense of exhilaration knowing that she had captured the attention and hearts of everyone in the room. She had transformed doubt into respect and skepticism, into admiration through the power of her talent and determination. She took a brief pause, allowing the final notes to resonate in the air, giving the audience a moment to absorb the impact of her performance. The silence that followed was filled with a sense of awe and appreciation. The room was electric with emotion, the energy of the audience reflecting the power of her playing. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that she had not only played the music, but had also shared a piece of herself with everyone present. The connection she had established through her performance was profound, a reminder of the universal language of music and its ability to unite and move people as she continued to play. The audience was completely captivated. They had forgotten to doubt, to laugh, to judge. All that mattered was the music, the story it told, and the skill and passion of the young girl who had taken the stage. Each note she played was infused with emotion, each phrase a testament to her dedication and love for the art. The room was filled with a sense of wonder, the kind that comes from witnessing something truly extraordinary. The girl could feel the power of her own music, the way it could touch hearts and inspire minds. With each passing moment, her confidence grew. She played with a fluidity and expressiveness that drew the audience deeper into the performance. They could sense the years of practice, the sacrifices, and the unwavering commitment that had brought her to this moment. The music seemed to flow effortlessly, a natural extension of her emotions and thoughts. She felt a sense of liberation, a freedom that came from being fully immersed in her art. The audience, in turn, was swept away by the beauty and intensity of her playing, completely absorbed in the experience. The girl played with a sensitivity that revealed the depth of her understanding of the music. She conveyed emotions that were both personal and universal, touching each listener in a unique and profound way. The audience, who had once laughed and doubted her, now sat in silence, captivated by the power and beauty of her performance. The transformation in the room was remarkable, testament to the ability of music to transcend expectations and connect people on a deep emotional level. The girl had proven, without words, that talent and dedication could overcome any doubt or prejudice. As she moved toward the end of the piece, her playing became more delicate and expressive. She allowed each note to linger, each phrase to resonate, creating a sense of anticipation and emotion that held the audience spellbound. The music had taken on a life of its own, a living expression of her passion and skill. The hall was completely absorbed in the performance, the listeners moved by the depth and beauty of what they were experiencing. The girl felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had shared something meaningful and powerful with everyone present. Finally, she played the last note, letting it resonate fully before lifting her hands from the keys. The room was silent for a brief moment, as if no one could believe what they had just witnessed. Then slowly, the audience began to react, a wave of applause and admiration filling the hall. The girl felt a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that she had captivated the audience and transformed their initial doubt into respect and awe. Her performance had proven that talent, courage, and dedication could overcome skepticism and ridicule, and she had done it with grace, passion, and humility. The impact of her performance was immediate and profound. Guests who had laughed and doubted her now approached her with admiration and respect, eager to express their appreciation for her talent. Some offered opportunities, mentorship, and encouragement. Recognizing the potential of a young musician who had already demonstrated remarkable skill and dedication, the girl felt a sense of validation and fulfillment, knowing that her hard work and perseverance had been recognized. She had not only silenced the laughter, but had also captured the hearts of everyone present. leaving a lasting impression that would be remembered for years to come. In that moment, she realized the true power of music, the ability to communicate emotion, inspire change, and connect people in ways that words could not. The audience, once filled with doubt and amusement, had been transformed by her performance, experiencing a range of emotions that left them moved, inspired, and in awe. The young girl who had faced ridicule and skepticism had shown that talent, courage, and audience remained spellbound as she continued to play, each note carrying more emotion than the last. The girl felt a deep connection to the music, as if it had been waiting inside her to be released. Her fingers moved with fluidity and confidence now, no longer tentative or hesitant. She could sense the listener's attention, the way their eyes followed her every movement, and the way their expressions changed with each chord. They were no longer spectators. They were participants in the story she was telling through sound. The hall was filled with a quiet energy, an almost tangible sense of awe that seemed to hang in the air with every note. She let herself be fully present in the moment, allowing the music to guide her rather than trying to control it. Her hands danced across the keys, moving through intricate passages with precision and emotion. The audience could feel the passion behind every movement, the dedication and effort that had brought her to this moment. What had begun as a simple performance had transformed into a journey, one that took the listeners through a range of emotions: hope, sorrow, joy, and wonder. The music spoke to them in a way that words never could. Bridging the gap between performer and audience, some of the guests had tears in their eyes, overwhelmed by the beauty and intensity of her playing. They could sense the story behind each note, the countless hours of practice, and the determination that had led her to this stage. The young girl was no longer just a performer. She was a storyteller, using her talent to communicate feelings that transcended age, language, and expectation. Every chord she struck seemed to reverberate through the room, touching hearts and minds with a power that few could imagine. The laughter that had once filled the hall was a distant memory, replaced by silence and deep respect. She moved through the middle sections of the piece with grace, allowing the music to build and swell, creating a sense of anticipation that held the audience in suspense. The notes rose and fell like waves, carrying with them the emotion and intensity of her expression. She could feel the energy of the listeners, their attention focused entirely on her, and it pushed her to give even more. Every movement of her hands, every subtle shift in tempo added depth and meaning to the performance. The room was alive with the power of her music, each person caught in the spell she had cast. The girl's performance became more dynamic as she explored the full range of the piano. She moved from delicate, soft passages to powerful, resonant chords that filled the hall with sound. The contrast in her playing created tension and release, drawing the audience deeper into the experience. They could feel the intensity of her emotions, the dedication and skill behind every note. Her music was no longer just a series of sounds. It had become a living expression of her inner world, a bridge between her heart and the hearts of those listening. The audience was completely captivated, unable to look away or think of anything other than the story unfolding through her fingers as she played. The girl noticed the reactions of the people around her. Some were leaning forward, eyes wide with wonder, completely absorbed in the performance. Others had their hands pressed to their chests, feeling the impact of the music on a deeper level. The older guests, who had initially doubted her abilities, now sat in silent admiration, impressed by the control and expression she displayed. Even those who had whispered and laughed at her earlier were now quiet, unable to contain their amazement. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her talent had not only captured their attention, but had also transformed their perceptions. The music began to take on a more personal tone, reflecting her own journey and experiences. She infused each phrase with emotion, allowing the audience to glimpse the struggles and triumphs that had shaped her as a musician. The young girl's story unfolded through the piano, revealing her resilience, courage, and dedication. The listeners were drawn into her world, feeling the weight of her experiences and the depth of her commitment. They could sense the vulnerability behind her performance, and it made the music even more powerful and moving. Each note seemed to carry a piece of her heart, connecting her to everyone in the room. The hall was filled with a profound silence, broken only by the sound of the piano. The girl felt the intensity of the moment, the way the audience hung on every note, every pause, every nuance of her playing, knew that this was more than a performance. It was a shared experience, a moment where music had the power to change perspectives and touch souls. The energy in the room was palpable, the connection between performer and audience growing stronger with each passing moment. She felt a sense of unity, as if the music had created an invisible bond between everyone present. As the piece reached its emotional peak, the girl's playing became more expressive and intense. Her hands moved with a speed and accuracy that was breathtaking, yet each note was perfectly controlled and deliberate. The audience could feel the passion radiating from her, the dedication and love for her craft. They were caught in the flow of the music, unable to resist its pull. The young girl had created a world within the hall, a place where doubt and skepticism had no power, and only the beauty of her talent mattered. The transformation was complete, and the audience was completely immersed in the experience. Some guests were on the verge of tears, deeply moved by the raw emotion and skill on display. They could see the years of practice, the sacrifices, and the determination behind every movement. The girl's performance had become a living testament to the power of perseverance and dedication. The music was not just a series of notes. It was a reflection of her spirit, a manifestation of her passion, and a symbol of the strength that comes from believing in oneself. The audience could feel the authenticity of her expression, and it made the experience even more profound and unforgettable. As the piece continued, the girl's confidence grew, and her playing became even more fluid and expressive. She allowed herself to be fully guided by the music, letting it flow naturally from her heart through her hands. The audience was completely captivated, following her on a journey that was both emotional and inspiring. They could sense the depth of her understanding, the way she interpreted each phrase with sensitivity and insight. Her performance had become a dialogue between herself and the listeners, a conversation carried out through sound, emotion, and artistry. The young girl's performance reached moments of delicate beauty, where each note was gentle and precise, almost fragile in its expression. Then, with a sudden shift, she moved into powerful, commanding chords that filled the hall with energy and intensity. The contrast created a sense of drama and excitement, holding the audience in suspense and drawing them further into the music. They were completely absorbed, unable to look away or think of anything other than the story being told through her playing. Every gesture, every movement of her fingers, was a testament to her skill, dedication, and emotional depth. The hall seemed to hold its breath as she navigated the complex passages of the piece. Her hands flew across the keys with precision and grace, producing a sound that was both powerful and emotive. The audience could feel the energy of her performance, the way she channeled her emotions into the music. They were drawn into her world, experiencing the highs and lows of the story she was telling. The young girl had transformed the hall into a space where music had the power to move hearts, inspire minds, and leave a lasting impression. Every listener was captivated, caught in the spell of her talent. She played with sensitivity and nuance, each note carefully considered and full of expression. The audience could sense the depth of her understanding, the way she interpreted the music with insight and feeling. They were completely engaged, following the journey she had created through sound. The young girl's performance had become more than a recital. It was an emotional experience, a testament to the power of music to communicate, inspire, and transform. The hall was united in appreciation, each person touched in a unique and personal way by the beauty and intensity of her playing. As the piece approached its conclusion, the girl's playing became more reflective and contemplative. She allowed each note to linger, creating a sense of anticipation and emotional resonance. The audience could feel the culmination of her effort, the expression of her heart and soul through every sound. They were moved, inspired, and awed by the depth of her talent and the power of her performance. The laughter and doubt that had once filled the hall were gone, replaced by admiration, respect, and a deep emotional connection to the young girl and her music. Finally, she reached the last notes, allowing them to resonate fully before lifting her hands from the keys. The hall remained silent for a moment, as if no one could believe what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the audience erupted into applause, cheering and clapping with genuine admiration. The girl felt a sense of fulfillment and pride, knowing that she had not only performed, but had shared a piece of herself with everyone present. The performance had transformed the atmosphere, silenced doubt, and captured the hearts of all who had listened. She had proven that talent, passion, and perseverance could overcome skepticism. And she had done it with grace and authenticity. The room was electric with energy as she continued her performance, each note more compelling than the last. The young girl felt the music flowing through her as if it had been a part of her for her entire life. She had lost herself in the rhythm, in the melody, in the very essence of what she was creating. The audience, once skeptical and mocking, now watched with admiration and respect. They leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with awe, unable to look away. Some had their hands over their hearts, overwhelmed by the beauty and emotion of the music. Every note she played carried a story. Every story touched those listening in a profound way. She moved seamlessly through the complex passages, her fingers flying across the keys with both speed and grace. Each chord and phrase was infused with emotion, conveying not just technical skill, but a deep, personal understanding of the music. The audience could feel the passion behind every note, the dedication, the countless hours of practice that had led her to this moment. They were captivated, drawn in by the power of her expression, and they could not help but be moved. The laughter and doubt that had filled the room before her performance had vanished completely, replaced by admiration, respect, and awe. As the piece progressed, the young girl allowed herself to explore the full range of the piano. She moved from soft, delicate passages that seemed to float in the air too strong, resonant chords that shook the hall with their intensity. The contrast in her playing created tension and release, drawing the audience deeper into the story she was telling. They could sense the emotions behind every phrase, the joy, the sorrow, the hope, and the determination. The music had become a living entity, and the listeners were completely absorbed in its power and beauty. The young girl had transformed the stage into a space where emotion and skill intersected, a place where every note mattered. She felt a sense of freedom as she played, the music guiding her rather than the other way around. Her confidence grew with each passing moment, and she allowed herself to take risks, exploring the intricacies of the piece with fearless precision. The audience was completely entranced, experiencing the depth of her talent and the sincerity of her expression. Some were moved to tears, touched by the authenticity and emotion of her performance. Others sat in silent admiration, captivated by the technical skill and the artistry displayed on the stage. The room was united in its appreciation, each person feeling the impact of her music in their own way. The young girl noticed the expressions of the audience as she played. Some were leaning forward, their eyes glued to her fingers, marveling at the speed and accuracy with which she executed each passage. Others had their eyes closed, letting the music wash over them, feeling every note in their hearts. The older guests, who had initially doubted her abilities, now sat in awe, recognizing the extraordinary skill and dedication that had brought her to this moment. Even those who had laughed at her earlier were now quiet, their disbelief replaced by admiration and respect. The performance had completely transformed the perception of everyone present, she continued, pouring every ounce of her emotion into the music. The audience was completely immersed, following her on a journey that spanned joy, melancholy, hope, and triumph. They could feel the weight of her dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the sacrifices she had made. The young girl was not just playing a piece of music. She was telling her story, sharing her journey, and connecting with the listeners on a deeply human level. Each note was a reflection of her resilience, her courage, and her unwavering belief in herself. The audience could sense the authenticity of her performance that moved them profoundly. The music began to build toward a crescendo, the intensity and emotion increasing with each passing measure. The girl's hands moved with speed and precision, each note carefully articulated yet full of passion. The audience could feel the power of her performance, the way the music seemed to fill every corner of the hall and touch every heart. They were completely captivated, caught in the spell of her talent and dedication. The young girl had transformed the room into a place where only the music mattered, a place where emotions could be shared without words, where skill and passion could command attention and respect. Some guests were on the verge of tears, overwhelmed by the beauty and intensity of the performance. They could sense the emotions behind every note, the struggles, the triumphs, and the sheer dedication that had brought her to this stage. The young girl's playing was a testament to the power of perseverance and the ability of music to communicate emotions that words could not. The audience was completely engaged, experiencing a range of feelings that left them inspired, moved, and deeply appreciative of her talent. The laughter that had once filled the room was gone, replaced by reverence and admiration for the young performer. As the performance continued, the girl's confidence grew, and her playing became more expressive and nuanced. She allowed herself to take risks, exploring the full range of dynamics, tone, and emotion that the piano could produce. The audience was completely absorbed, following her on an emotional journey that was both personal and universal. They could feel the connection between the performer and the music, the way she poured her heart into every note. Her performance had become a dialogue, shared experience that united everyone in the room through the power of music. The young girl reached the climax of the piece, her hands moving with incredible precision and fluidity. The chords resonated through the hall, filling every corner with sound and emotion. The audience could feel the intensity, the energy, and the passion behind each note. Some were leaning forward, unable to take their eyes off her fingers, while others had their eyes closed, letting the music wash over them. The young girl had created a moment of pure connection, a space where the audience and the performer were united through the power of her talent and the beauty of her expression. She continued, allowing the music to rise and fall, to ebb and flow with emotion and intensity. The audience was completely captivated, experiencing a range of feelings that left them inspired and moved. They could sense the dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the passion that had driven her to this moment. The young girl's performance had become a living testament to the power of perseverance, skill, and emotional expression. The hall was filled with a sense of awe and admiration, each listener touched by the depth and authenticity of her music as the piece neared its conclusion. The girl allowed herself to slow down, to savor the final phrases, and to give each note the attention it deserved. The audience followed her every movement, completely immersed in the performance. They could feel the culmination of her effort, the expression of her heart and soul through every sound. The young girl had transformed the room into a space where emotion, skill, and dedication intersected, creating a powerful and unforgettable experience. The applause that would eventually follow seemed almost unnecessary, for the impact of her music was already deeply felt. Finally, she played the last note, letting it resonate fully before lifting her hands from the keys. The hall remained silent for a moment, as if no one could believe what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the audience erupted into applause, cheering and clapping with genuine admiration. The young girl felt a sense of fulfillment and pride, knowing that she had not only performed but had shared a piece of herself with everyone present. The performance had silenced doubt, transformed skepticism into respect, and left a lasting impression on all who had listened. After the applause, several prominent guests approached her, offering praise, encouragement, and opportunities that she had never imagined. Some spoke of potential mentorships, scholarships, and invitations to perform in prestigious venues. The young girl felt a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and pride. She had faced ridicule and doubt, yet her talent and dedication had won the respect of the very people who had initially dismissed her. The recognition was not just for her skill, but for her courage, determination, and ability to share her gift with the world. The experience changed her in ways she could hardly describe. She realized that talent, when combined with perseverance and courage, could overcome any obstacle. She understood that her music had the power to touch hearts, inspire minds, and change perceptions. The young girl felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that she could continue to grow as a musician and share her passion with others. The audience, in turn, left the hall transformed, carrying with them the memory of a performance that had been more than music hit, had been a testament to the human spirit, resilience, and the beauty of dedication and expression.